Hello, and thanks for tuning in again to Front Porch Conversations. I want to welcome our guests today, Dale and Sue Whitmore. Thank you for joining us. And I'd like you to tell us how you first knew about Advent Christian Village Day.
My grandmother came here about 1972, and before she died, my parents moved here in 1991, and my mom died 2 years ago, so we've been in and out of the village for a long time.
So you have just recently, though, moved to the village yourself. When was that?
Memorial Day weekend, we moved here. Yeah.
And where do you live?
We live on Park Central Drive, we're in a duplex right across the street from the entrance to Carter House.
And Sue, you'd visited a lot over the years, too.
Oh, yes. From the time our daughter was a baby, we would come and visit his grandmother. And we've always come and gone, and we've always said this is where it's going to be. So.
Back in the days when the lovely fountain was still a cow pasture.
Yes, it was a cow pasture. That's right. Yeah.
Well, for some of our longtime residents here, Joy and Ted Whitmore were Dale's parents. And they were here many years. Great folks. I enjoyed getting to know them. Sue, where were you born?
I was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and grew up in the suburbs outside of that in an area they call the Main Line. And my parents bought the house when I was 3 months old, and I grew up in the same neighborhood, the same house my entire life, and my parents stayed in the house until they passed away. Yeah.
And Dale, what about?
I was an Air Force baby. I was born in San Antonio, but I grew up mostly in Bradenton till I was about 12, and then moved back home to Winter Park, which is, I'm the fourth generation from Winter Park, Florida.
I know that area well, but it doesn't look like it did when you grew up there, does it?
No, we left there. When we left there, Disney had just bought their property. It's changed a bit.
Just a bit. And for those of you who don't know, Winter Park is basically near Orlando, but it was a quaint, beautiful town.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
What about education? You went to school in the same community the whole time?
We went to school at Maryville College in Maryville, Tennessee, and that's where I met him. And so that was it. And so that was pretty much my education at that point. Yeah.
And how did you meet?
Well, I was sitting in the cafeteria with some girls, friends from my floor, and this was right after Christmas. And we came back from the holidays, and I'm watching this guy walk across the cafeteria, and I said, "Ooh, who's he?" And my friends knew him from high school, and they told me who he was, and I thought, well, I want to meet him. And so that was how we met, and the girls introduced me to him, and so that's how I met him. Mm-hmm.
Dale, how do you remember that story?
I don't remember that moment at all, but once we met, we were just constant companions since then.
Well, sometimes I get different answers from each person of a couple about how they met. So I always like to ask that.
I didn't go to school in Tennessee.
And what was your field of study?
Dale, that was my field of study. I went to school because I wanted to become a teacher, and I really wanted to become a kindergarten teacher, but I did not finish my education there. But over the years, it's just allowed me to, still in my heart, to be with other little children and to be with them and just be with them. So, yeah.
They're great fun, aren't they?
Yes.
What about you, Dale?
I'm a retired Army officer. And back in the 80s, the Army was pushing hard for officers to get a college degree if they didn't have one. So I got a bachelor's degree in human resources. And then later, I got another degree in education, a master's in education, that I didn't want to get, but God had that plan for me. And it proved later to be of value. But
And what was your military career like? What did you do and where were you?
I flew attack helicopters. I was in Vietnam and in North Carolina, and then I got out. And I was out of active duty for some years and flew with the National Guard here in Florida, and then in Michigan where we moved. And I went back on active duty. And 3 years later, the Army sent us out to Arizona to train pilots, and I was there the rest of my career.
And when you retired, you lived in Arizona then?
We did. We moved to Arizona in 1989, and I retired in 2001. And so we've come and gone from there, but Tucson, Arizona has been our home for the last 35 years.
And Sue, during those years, what were you doing?
Oh my, raising children.
And tell us about your children.
We have a daughter whose name is Joy, and then we have two sons, Lyons and Dale Jr. And raising them, when we moved there, my daughter had finished high school, but our boys were going into high school when we moved to Tucson. And so I did that, and I worked for a family practice and learned how to do billing and coding and all of that stuff. And so I did that for a number of years. And then I had an opportunity to work for a group of cardiologists and oversee their billing and making money for them. So I did that for a lot of years until I finally said, I'm not having fun anymore, so I'm going to stop working. But it was getting close for him to retire, and we knew we had some other plans that I wouldn't be working anymore in an office. Yeah.
And she's not telling you the part that in the midst of that, she was a professional scuba diver and scuba instructor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I think I'm somewhat adventuresome, but that's never been on my list of adventure things to try.
Well, that's one, and there are many people like you that do that. They say, I just want to do this, and I help them do it, and we get it through, and they get in the ocean, and they just love it. So, yep.
Did she get you in the ocean scuba diving too?
We did it together. We actually became professional divers and instructors in order to pay for that habit.
Oh.
When you live in the middle of the desert a long way from water, it's an expensive habit.
Yeah.
Well, I know it's warm here right now, but from what I heard on the news this morning, it's probably a good thing you're not in Arizona right now. It's even hotter.
You know, we talked to our son, and it surprisingly has only been in southern Arizona about 10 degrees hotter than here.
Oh, really?
But it's 16% humidity there and 90 here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So.
It's more like baking.
Slowly
Baking in Arizona, yeah. Yeah.
When, over the times that you came back to the village after your parents moved here, Dale, what have you seen happening?
You know, somebody asked me that question this morning, in fact. When my grandmother first came, she lived in one of the cinder block houses on Millsite Lane while she was waiting for Dowling House to open the first floor. She moved into Dowling House on the first floor when it started. And then she moved to Wilson Gardens when they started doing assisted living there. And then over to what is now Riverview, to their nursing home, and then came on the parade from Riverview when they opened Good Sam. So in her years, she just hit a window of change. And so that was her window, and then my parents came, just in the next wave of change when they built the new Carter administrative offices and built the medical building and built the Copeland Center. Like I said, when we first started coming, the lovely fountain was a cow pasture. Right over here across the way was where the chicken houses were, and the kids lived in the buildings. So we've seen a lot of change.
And now that you've come, we've built a dog park.
That's right.
Which is beautiful, by the way.
It's the nicest dog park I've ever seen.
I'd like to see some dogs in it, but it's great. Nice place. Yeah.
Sue, I know Dale has the long time history and legacy in his family. What about the village caused you to want to also be here, other than to be with Dale?
You know what, over the years when we saw the care of people, and that this really still holds very closely and on a good grip on, this is ministry. It's not just a business, this is ministry, and we care for the people that are here. I think we really saw how they cared for his mom as she went downhill. And even to the point where I went back to Tucson and told people, I said, I've never seen a place like this. But when we went, when they said we needed to come, it was time. And we said, if it's COVID, can we even be with her? And they said yes. And when we got there, we were in a special room. It had recliners and a TV. Mom was in a regular bed, even to the point that on the walls were pictures of the family in that room. And I've never experienced any place that was like that. And as I talk to others, they say, I don't know this. How did you find this place? And I said, because the family's always been there. And all these years, we have always said, this is where we're going. For the same reason that his grandmother was here and his parents were here. I love my children, but I've seen how when a child has to take care of the parents, their life ceases. They can't travel, they can't do anything. And so we just didn't want that for our children. We wanted to come here where we knew that we would be cared for all the way to the end. Yeah.
And where do your children live?
Well, our daughter lives in Northern Virginia, and we have one son and his family who lives in the Houston area, and we have one son and his family who live in Tucson.
So you have places to go.
Yes. Yes, we do.
Yes. We have 3 adult grandchildren and their spouses and 5 great-grandchildren, and they all live on the East Coast. Yeah. So we've been looking forward to coming here to have some measure of proximity. So yes, we intend to travel when it cools down a little bit.
What have you found that you would like to be involved in now that you've moved here?
Well, I've already started volunteering with Diana Fryer over in the nursing home, and because my background had been all that kind of thing, insurance and so forth. So I'm volunteering with her, but my heart is really to be able to be with the people in the nursing home or in the assisted living and to just talk to them and enjoy them. And whether it means reading to them or caring for them in some way or just being an outside somebody that they have contact with. That's sort of what my heart is. Yeah.
And Dale, what about you?
The river draws me. My dad ran the boat for years when it was over by the lodge on that big pier, and so I've started working on the boat. But I'm a bit of a handyman, and so I'm already getting drawn into projects here and there.
I heard that. And now you'll be hearing from more people, probably.
Oh yeah, maybe we need to cut that part.
As far as involvement in church, are you attending church here?
Yes. Yes. I think for us, we really felt like this is the community where we're going to be living, and we wanted to be part of the community, which is being part of the church here. Yes. So that's, being part of the church.
Our background is Assemblies of God. But when I, some years ago, saw a list of what the Advent Christian denomination believes, I said, I'm good with that. When we go there, we want to be fully engrossed in the family life in the village. Yeah. So we're not yet, but we will become Advent Christian folks.
Yeah.
And this is a family, a community, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
People are not necessarily related except through Jesus Christ.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Dale, have you seen the river change while you're here?
Already, and since whatever it's been 7 weeks, I guess, since we came, it's gone from 23 feet to 35 feet and back down to 25. And I love it. I'm on the river a couple times a week most of the time. It's marvelous. White Sands Beach, of course, is eternal. the rope swing is eternal.
Yeah.
It's the river camp, of course, is new, and that's a very nice facility too.
And for our viewers, we want to tell them a little bit about the river camp.
Oh, the river camp, I believe there are 5 river camps along the Swanee River that are state of Florida. This one has covered areas, covered screened-in areas for people to go and essentially camp out of the rain and out of the bugs, and they have bathroom facilities. It's just a really good spot for folks who are on the river to stop. There's one right across the river here.
Near the bridge.
Yeah.
On the other side of the bridge.
And there's one upriver from here and one downriver from here. And I've forgotten which is which. One is 11 miles and one is 14 miles. So the river system that Florida has set up on this river is quite amenable to a long journey with daily bites at a time between those river camps. They're very nice.
I think it's wonderful because so many people have enjoyed the river for years, but this is a way to have a spot to be coming out of the storm.
And many people in the village maybe don't do the long trips, but there's a lot of folks spend time on the river here.
And I think the wonderful thing about the pontoon boat for here is there are a lot of people who've never been out on the river, and that's a treat for them when they get to go.
Yes.
A beautiful spot.
It is a beautiful spot.
I know our kids, my dad's grandkids, that's their favorite memory of it. And so I'm looking forward to having my grandkids here.
Yeah.
And do you guys have dates set up for visits?
Some. Yeah, I think the first one is fall break from school in October, so we're looking forward to that.
Good. It sounds like you've done a lot of things in your life. And what would you describe as your bucket list items
Oh gosh.
at this point?
You know, I don't really know. I think one of the things that I've always thought I would like to do is go to Israel. And that's just, the opportunity just hasn't really rolled around. When opportunities were there, it was not a safe place to go at that time. But I think I would still like to try to do that at some point in my life. But other than that, I think my bucket list is to be a really good grandma and great grandma. Yeah.
Mine too.
Yeah.
Ted, what about you? Dale, what about you?
I'm good with Ted.
Ted, Dale, Ted.
I hope to wind up with a reputation like his, so I'm good with that. You know, there aren't any things I have left that I'd really like to do. There are a few. Most of them have to do with boats, but I don't know that they'll come to fruition. But I'm okay with having dreams that I don't really expect to ever fulfill. Yeah. I can have really nice dreams of it.
Well, I will have to say that Joy was the first member who came into my office when I came to work here. And she came and just walked in and said, "You need to know me, and I want to know you."
Yes, that's her.
And she said, "Now, anything you need to know about anybody else, you can ask me too."
And that's true too.
And Ted helped me try to get a green thumb. It's not working too well, but it wasn't for his lack of trying.
Well, my lovely bride's trying to get me to do stuff at our house. And
Putting in flowers.
My dad's, even his degree was in ornamental horticulture. That's what he loved. My brother inherited that. My sister inherited that. These thumbs are not green.
I like them to be not black, just maybe brownish green.
Black is good because it means you're playing in the dirt.
Well, that's true.
Yeah.
And that's the fun part
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah.
And to be surprised when something grows that I've planted.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm actually growing a white eggplant right now, unless the
Ooh.
rains killed it the other day.
Oh.
It was
beautiful.
just a little seed there, or a little plant somebody left and said, "Take it if you want." So
Oh, That's fun.
Nice.
But it's just fun watching things grow. And but I did learn something this year. Don't plant your green beans near sunflowers. I had the green beans about 6 feet high.
Climbing up the.
I'm going to plant bush beans next year. That's my gardening tip. Or not plant the sunflowers near them.
Nice.
Good. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, it's good.
Dale, if I may have not remembered correctly, but after you got out of the military, what line of work did you go in?
I've still done several things, but they don't know, but you know you had a prepared list of questions. And so you've given me the segue into one of those questions.
Okay.
After I retired, we really didn't have any particular direction. We knew that God had something for us, but we didn't know what it was. I have never, only for 4 years in the last 22 have I actually done anything for employment, for a paycheck. And God's led us around. But the one thing I really wanted to share was we were involved with an RV ministry for some years. And we were traveling, leaving one job, going to another. It was, we had always wanted to do something and something and something and serve God in the midst of it. And I guess that's good. That's better than not serving God in the midst of it. But as we were driving, God really challenged us one day, and he said, what would you be willing to do to serve me the way I want you to serve me? And I went, oh.
That's a pretty heavy question.
I'm not the sharpest marble in this bag, but I knew enough not to answer that one flippantly. He said, would you be willing to go places others won't go? Would you be willing to do things others won't do? Would you be willing to work alone, the two of you, instead of part of a group? And so we stewed about that one for almost the entire width of Texas.
That's a lot of stewing.
Which is plenty of time to stew. And we finally said, yes, God, we'll do that. And our lives, we're still amazed at the paths our lives took, that never, ever would we have dreamed of such things and places. And so I would, if no one gets anything else out of this 30 minutes of stuff, I would hope that they would be challenged by that and want to say, God, I hear you asking want to ask me a question. My answer is yes. What's the question? Yeah. It utterly changed the entire trajectory of our lives.
Yeah.
So would you share some of those things that God called you to do?
Well, after 2 or 3 years, God spoke to us about going to China. We'd never even thought about missions. Seriously, we never even thought about it.
Last thing I ever wanted to do, ever.
And we wound up in China. And, it's easy to think, I'm going to be a China missionary. That would be very cool. We went as school teachers because I had that master's degree in education. That was the door to get me into China, into China. And then Sue has wonderful ministry gifts and wonderful gifts in the Lord. And I pretty much have one. My gift to the kingdom of God is sweat. So pretty quickly that whole school thing in China went out the window when they asked me to do construction stuff for folks in China. So we did that for some years and came home. And he had me training pilots again. That was fun, but I would never have thought of that. And later we went to the Middle East.
Okay, can we go back to training pilots?
Yes.
Was that used in missionary work or just pilots?
Nope.
No. Okay.
No. Actually, the companies that provide the pilots that land outside the door right here in the field, I trained some of their Western pilots for night vision goggle, night system flying in support of the EMS mission mostly. So that was that. And we went to the Middle East. One of the couples from China said, "We're going to start a business. Would you go just support us?" So we went there for a year and lived about 200 yards from the beach. And
Water.
yeah. And then came home and have been in the U.S. since then, but mostly doing construction, carpentry kind of stuff. That's my gift to the kingdom is sweat.
That's a neat way to put it. Sue, what was your experience doing that?
Oh my goodness, it was fabulous. I loved while we were in China, we were teaching English, and so these university girls would want to, it was like puppies in your apartment. And they would all come together and they wanted to spend all this time with us because they wanted to learn English. And we're obviously in that environment, you can't really espouse the message of Christ, but they could ask me about my God, because I would talk about my God all the time, and they would say, "Tell me about your God." And I would begin to talk to them about it, because at one point they would say, "You don't understand that we've grown up being told that there is no God." And I said, but they said, "When we listen to you, we know that there is a God." And so that really seemed to open doors for them to at least hear the message. And being aware of their culture, that they are the only child that's going to come out of college to support that family, and the parents have high hopes for them. And one of the things that we learned is, if they became a Christian prior to graduating from college, they would have to lie and say that they didn't have anything to do with God. But later on in their life, we found that, so that if they had heard the message, we know that God would bring the message back forward in His words. And after they became a member of the Communist Party, they never again were asked. And so they could accept the Christ and accept Jesus into their life, but never have to deny Him in order to be able to have a good job and so forth. So that was really an amazing, learning their culture and learning that kind of really prepared us for when we went to the Middle East. Very similar, but it was easy to begin to figure out, how do I communicate the gospel to them? Yeah.
And it seems like you've left a lot of impact in places.
Well, we hope so. I hope the Lord has left an impact.
Hopefully.
I hope the Lord has.
A positive impact for the Lord. Thank you so much for visiting with me this afternoon. And I hope you'll tune in again to another Front Porch Conversation.